He is wrong.
My name is Carrie Patel, and I'm the game director of Avowed.
My name is Berto Ritger. I'm a region director on the project on Avowed.
Okay, thanks. And the first question is, could you introduce this game and talk about this world and the characters, please?
So, Avowed is an action-adventure fantasy RPG set in the Living Lands, which is the weird, wonderful frontier of the world of Aora. Players who enjoyed our Pillars of Eternity RPGs will recognize this as another region in a world that they know and love, and players who have never set foot in the world of Aora are going to have a great time getting to know a very colorful, strange land and a very exciting set of abilities.
Yeah, thanks. And could you take another?
Sure, I don't have too much to add to that. I will say it's not a fully open world game, it's an open region game, so it's that's about it. I mean,
yeah. It's a real open world or it's a linear world?
So it says yeah.
Oh, I would say it's a little bit of both. Not entirely. It's open zone, so you'll have a lot of free roam ability. You can go through any side quest or crit path that you'd like to, or main story quest that you'd like to. But there are moments that open up the further region, so there's some funneling and linearity, but mostly it's an open game.
Players who are familiar with the Outer Worlds, which was one of our previous RPGs, will recognize the structure of a series of open zones, like Berto said, that are connected by a story and a plot that will take them through them.
Yeah, thanks. And you talk about Outer World, but it's not the first game for for Obsidian. But the previous game was Peer of Eternity. It's the sequel. Avowed is the sequel?
So, Avowed is not a direct sequel to Pillars of Eternity. It is set in the same world. It's set in a similar time period, but and there are a few returning characters, but by and large, most of the characters players will meet are new. They are inhabiting a new player character in the Envoy of Adir, as opposed to the Watcher of Cadnua, which is who they played in Pillars of Eternity. And the region that they're exploring, the Living Lands, that's going to be a new setting for players as well. So, we wanted to create something that drew from the same world, the same lore, and again, that will be familiar to returning players, but also welcoming to new players. We expect that many players stepping foot in Avowed will never have set foot in the Pillars of Eternity games, and that's okay. We're prepared to onboard them, welcome them into the world, introduce them to the lore, and show them a good time.
Yeah, good. Thanks. And in these games, when I watch demo, I watch it's a first-person game, but many of players expect to be able to play in third-person game in this game. Is it possible?
Yes, it is possible. It's an accessibility option, but we do support it throughout the whole game. We design primarily in first person, but you can play the whole thing in third person.
Yeah, this is awesome. Good. And to this game, there are many characters for the main characters. There are Barbare, guerrier, warrior. There are magician, wizard, and which another?
So we have 3 basic skill trees that are sort of skewed towards those player character archetypes like you mentioned. There's the fighter tree, which skews more towards a lot of your classic melee abilities and sort of tanky passives. There's the wizard tree, which as you mentioned skews towards a lot of magic wielding and also wand mastery. And then the other tree is really for ranger rogue specialization, so you'll have more abilities that will help you out with ranged weaponry, with crowd control and those sorts of abilities. But ultimately Avowed is a classless game, so players don't have to specialize in any one of those abilities. They can mix and match freely from those trees as they level up and proceed throughout the game. They can pick, and they do not have to invest earlier points in the ability tree in order to get those later points once they are of the requisite level. So there's a ton of player freedom in how they choose to build and level up their character.
Yeah, exactly. And when you play a warrior, you can have a many weapon in each hand. And you can spell a sword, yeah? Yes. And you can do everything.
You can dual wield, you can cast spells, you can wear heavy armor, you can really choose to play however you want.
I would say you can have a pistol in one hand and a wand in the other, or a sword and axe, and there's enchanted weapons and unique weapons. There's a lot of unique weapons, and they all have totally different abilities, so yeah, there's a lot of variety.
Yeah, it's often. And When you play, you are not alone. You have a companion. How many companions you have, and what skill have they?
So you'll meet 4 companions over the course of the game. At any one time, you can have 2 of them in your party with you. And they represent a spread of species from the world of Aora, and also a range of different sort of companion class archetypes. So players have seen a lot of Kai, who is an Aumaua. He's also a very tanky companion, and he's kind of your classic fighter type. So he's the character you'll meet first, and he's very versatile. So players who are playing someone who's a little more fragile, like a wizard or a ranger character, will have very good backup in Kai. But over the course of the game, they'll also meet Marius, who is a Dwarven Ranger, Yatzli, who is an Orlan Scholar and Wizard, has some very fun offensive magic capabilities, and Giada, who's a human and your Priest Healer companion.
Okay. And when you play with your companion and you make a choice in this game, it's a change behavior of your companions on the story. No?
So your companions are all, they're all either from the Living Lands or they've lived there for a very long time. So yes, as you mentioned, they will have very strong opinions about some of the choices you can make across the course of the game. They'll comment on some of the choices you've made, try to understand you better as a character, and offer some of their own insights and thoughts on, the best course forward. But ultimately, those choices still belong with the player, and the mission that you're there together to resolve the Dream Scourge and save the Living Lands, ultimately takes precedence over everybody's individual feelings, so everyone has to find a way to work together.
The only thing I would say really is that the companions have a lot to say even on side quest content, so you'll get a lot of opinions on the outcomes of the choices you make along every little bit of the story of Avowed.
Okay, and do you think how many hours to finish this game with the main quest and with the old quest?
It's very difficult to assign a number to that just because everybody's play style is so different, but I would say players can expect comparable scope and comparable experience to the Outer Worlds.
Yeah, thanks.
I would say not much to add to that. Yeah, it's very hard to put a number on it. Everyone's a little different. So. Yeah,
really. And do you think, because I read a lot of players say it's Skyrim-like, do you think that?
I mean, I think it's hard to avoid that comparison just because that's been, such a huge game in fantasy action RPGs for such a long time. I mean, we have first person, we have a very well-developed melee combat system, and a lot of a big variety of abilities and weapons that players can spec into. I think there is a lot that differentiates us, however, so I think that's ultimately a pretty shallow comparison. But for a first-person action-adventure RPG, I mean, it's, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Thanks. And for develop this game, what is the challenge for you for develop this game and finish this game?
Well, goodness, I mean, anytime you're working on an RPG of this scope, there's so many systems that interlock together that, affect the way players play. And so, you're building levels, which Berto can speak more to in a minute, and, you're building content that takes the player through those levels, and you're trying to balance sort of what is the player's personal experience and kind of what choices are they making as they progress through the game, and how can we respect and really build to their build choices and their narrative choices, while also making sure that everybody is going to have a fun and varied experience, and that all the systems we're putting in for combat, for inventory management, for level up, for all of these different parts of the experience, that they all mesh together really well. But again, Berto's been, deep in the weeds of content creation.
Absolutely. There's a lot of moving parts to consider. We have a lot of movement abilities, combat abilities, skill checks and dialogue, and choices you've made previously in the game that we want to respect and adapt the game towards. So the one thing that you'll see in some of the footage as well is charge as a combat ability that can cross a lot of distance, but that also allows you to charge across big gaps in the environment. So we kind of have to support, like, if you want to break things, you can, and you can skip stuff, and you can jump around huge gaps, and we allow you, there's like freezing water and gaps like that we incorporate into the environment. So if you're playing just going along the story, you can miss some stuff, but if you want to explore, there's a ton of things to find and nooks and crannies and loot to grab. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And just a personal question. In this game, what is your character do you prefer? What is the character you prefer?
I really like building a character with dual-wielding pistols and lots of good charge and crowd control abilities so that I can shoot while one's reloading, I shoot the other, and when the other's reloading, I charge in, stun a few guys, and maybe when I level up enough, use clear out to do a nice big sweep attack on everybody around me and just feel like a total badass charging through big groups of enemies.
Right.
My favorite, I like to mix and match. So we have a grimoire where you can cast spells directly from it, but you can also spend skill points to directly unlock a single spell. So if you don't want to use a grimoire all the time, like I'll often have a pistol in one hand and an axe, like a freezing axe, you've seen a lot of the footage. And I can freeze enemies, I can shoot them and shatter them, and then I can cast like Pull of Aor to bring in a giant group together, and I can clear out, like Carrie was saying, and hit all of them at once. And so you can mix and match a lot, and there's a ton of freedom and choice. So I'm kind of adapting all the time, trying to experiment with everything, but that's my favorite at the moment.
Yeah, good. Thank you. And to conclude this interview, have you a few words for console fan, please?
Well, we're really excited for everybody to explore the living lands in the world of Aora in February of next year. We think there are a lot of exciting things to discover, a lot of really great secrets that Berto and the other area designers have built into the levels, and I can't wait to see people discovering those, posting about them, and enjoying them.
Just all very excited for February 18th. And there's the thing that stands out the most, honestly, we've been doing a lot of playthroughs, is just that feeling of wanderlust and exploration. There's so much stuff to find, things that everybody on the team has poured their heart into, so we're very excited for people to get their hands on the game.
Really, thank you. Et voilà, nous étions donc en compagnie de Carrie et de Berto pour l'interview de Avowed à la Paris Games Week, et je vous souhaite de passer un agréable moment. Merci, au revoir à tous.
So now that you have all this power, what are you gonna do with it?